Okay, hello everyone. This is Victor Mama from Excel Moments, and in this video, we take a deep dive into advanced filter. In the first video in this series, I pretty much just did an introduction into advanced filter, showing us some of its unique features or peculiarities and how it differs from your regular filter. Of course, if it's called advanced, then it means that it must have, some more, I would say, robustness, or should be able to work in some more complex scenarios. But I'm not going to go over that. You have the video if you want to, you know, take a look at it, and I advise that you do before we come into this. So in this video, I want to pretty much just start from where um, we set up, for the advanced filter and what we need to actually make this work. Okay, so there are three things that are key, maybe two. The third is kind of optional. The first thing is you need to have a range that you're going to filter on. And of course, if you know you're filtering, it means that you have a criteria that you're filtering by or filtering based on. So first thing is you have a list range, which is your range of data. You have a criteria range, which you can put anywhere on the sheet. Doesn't really matter. Then the third thing, which is optional, is if you choose to copy the filtered data to a different location, then you have more or less like a range where you are going to copy to. So the first thing is the list range, which is really your data source. You have your criteria range, and then you have, your third range, which is going to be where you're extracting or where you're copying to. But because you have the option to filter in place, you may not need the option of what copy to a different location. So instead of talking too much without visuals, let's pull up advanced filter. You go to your data tab and you do advanced here under sort and filter. The other option is to use Alt, Alpha, Quebec, Alt AQ, and this is pulled up. Okay, so now the way it works is this. You have, as you can see, filter the list in place. That's one option. Copy to another location is another option. So the first thing is your list range. If you are using a proper data set, it would pick the correct range for you. So you really don't have any problems. The other thing you need is what your criteria range. So let me just talk a little on the criteria range. For the criteria range, I'm going to start from simple and then we'll make it more complex. In this case, I'm assuming that I just want to filter on company name, Halloween as the company name. Okay, that's what I want to do. I would say some little things about this filtering by text criteria, but let's just focus on this for now. So I want to just filter by company name. If I wanted to filter by maybe company name and location, then I would come include location here, and when I'm selecting my criteria range, I would include it in there. Okay, so you don't have to repeat every column, because sometimes when we filter, we are filtering on just one column. So the only column you need to put in your criteria range is the column where you actually want to do a filter on. For the ones you're not filtering on, they don't need to feature. Okay, is that fine? So let's just do this first of all and filter in place. So go to your advanced filter again. Now our lists range has been selected correctly. For your criteria range, when you select, you shouldn't select only the company name. You shouldn't also select only Halloween. You need to select both of them. This is the important thing about the criteria range. The name here for the column must match the name in the table. Okay, so if the name doesn't match exactly, then you're not going to get the result. Of course, instead of rewriting the name here, always maybe copy from your list range into your criteria range so that you're sure that you're not making any mistakes, spelling, spaces, or whatever. Okay, so you select your company name and Halloween, so it knows that you are filtering on the company name column, and the criteria is what? Halloween. It's that simple. This is an example where filter can work, but just for demonstration purposes. Once you do that, you can click OK. Now you see that our data has been filtered and we have just Halloween. So only rows that have Halloween as the company name are displayed. Now here's one other thing you need to note. If this were a filter, you would see your arrows, right? Like your drop down arrows on each of the columns. And you would also see a filter symbol on the column where it's been filtered. But with advanced filter, you don't see anything. The only cue you have is that when you look at the rows and the row numbers, you can see that some rows are hidden, and you can see that when you have your rows written in blue font, then you know that there's some hidden data. Okay, but to clear the filter is just the same way you clear. So it's pretty much just to do what? A clear, or Alt Alpha Charlie, Alt AC will clear. Okay, and that's gone. Whenever you also initiate an advanced filter, it creates a name in the name manager. Normally, it will create two names. It will create two names when you copy to a different location. So it will create a name criteria for the criteria range, and it will create a name extract for the range where you copy to. But for now, because we've not done the option of copy to a different location, we should only see the name extract, criteria in there. So let's go to our name manager, formulas, and then name manager. You could press Control F3 too. Or okay, so you can see that we have what? A criteria range. By the time we use the option of copy to a different location, then you would see the option of what? You'll see the range name called extract. Okay, so it creates them itself. So that's one thing. So now let me just talk a little on, filtering using a text criteria. When you filter using a text criteria, the way it is set up is whatever text it sees there, Excel looks to filter assuming that the text in this range begins with whatever is written here. Now, this is not exactly apparent now. It's like, what is he saying exactly? I'm going to change this so that you see what I mean. I change this to a J. I just put my company name strictly as J. What would you expect? You will expect that when I filter, the only row that will be returned is this, because this is the only data that has a company name of what? J. But let's see what happens. So let's repeat our advanced filter and see the results. Data advanced. Okay, I think everything is still same. Our list range is fine. Our criteria range is still the same. So let's do okay. Now see what happens. It doesn't only return the record that has J as the company name. It returns every record that starts with a what? A J. Huh? So whenever you put a criteria in here like this, just as J, what you are saying is look for any company that begins with what? J. So whatever text you put here, Excel takes that as begins with, and it looks for anything that begins with that, and it then filters based on that. You notice that when we filtered, it didn't return something like Tom and Jerry. Why? Because it doesn't start with a J, right? Let's do that again. So you see, only those that start with a J are returned. Okay. So this doesn't mean J only. It means J and any other thing, more or less like J asterisks if you want to get into wildcards. But I have an exercise for wildcards, so I don't want to talk about that for now. So that's important for you to know. So if you strictly want to filter by J alone, meaning that I want to, rather than use this as begins with, I want to use this as filter exactly by this, then you have to pretty much do this equals to, open your double quotes, equals to J, and then close the double quotes. Okay, so that what it has there is more or less equals to J. So this one would mean strictly, if it is not J, then that's not what I need. So let's try this. Okay, so now do our filter again, advanced, and then do what? Okay. So now you see that we got only the company name J. So it's important to know so that when you're writing your filter criteria, you know what is what. Okay, so let me clear this. Now let's just do maybe the Halloween example again, and then add the option of copying it to a different location. So that's just what I'm going to do. The same exercise, but copy to a different location. So do advanced now. Now we're going to go with what? Copy to a different location. What I want to do here is just to put it somewhere down here, right? Okay, so nothing has changed. I'm filtering on this same data, assuming that my company name is what? Halloween, and what? I want to copy it to a different location. So let's do what? Okay. So do you see? So what did we get? We got records that have a company name of what? Halloween. Now, what did I say earlier? That when you use the option of copy to, Excel would create for you a name in name manager, which it will call extract. So let's go back there now and see Control F3, right? So you can see that you now have a name extract and you have a name what? Criteria, which points to the criteria range, and the extract points to the range where the data is extracted to. Whenever you then run the advanced filter again, it deletes these records and it then populates with the new one. Okay, so one other thing to talk about here is the output. You can see that even though I filtered, of course, just on one column, when it was returning the results, it returned all the columns in my data set. So that's why everything just pretty much lines up. But there could be times where what you want returned is not every column. What you want is just a few columns, maybe just the ID, the name, and the maybe company name. Let's try something like that. Okay, I'm going to clear this first. Okay, so let's assume that what I need it to return is client ID, maybe first name, location, and company name, just so that I'm sure it's Halloween. So let's copy that and let's paste it here. Okay, so we're assuming in this case that we don't want to return the entire data. So what you do is you select the columns that you want. So now I'm going to repeat the advanced filter and you see the difference now. So this is your way of telling Excel, no, don't return the entire columns, just return the columns as specified. So let's do copy to a location. So now for the copy to, you can see it's still picking the old range. So I would select just this. So it knows that, oh, you're going to return the data, but they must be for just these columns. Okay, so let's see if that works. Then you do what? Okay. You see that? Okay, so instead of giving me the entire data set, now it's narrowed down to just the columns that I've specified. So that's one beautiful thing about it. So you're copying to a location, but you don't have to copy all the columns if you don't need all the columns. And this gives you the results. Okay, so I think we've made some good progress. Um, One last thing I think I will just say in this video before we move to the next one would be to talk about unique records. I have an example, down the line, maybe in the next video, where we talk about, removing duplicates. Like I said in my introduction, back in the day, it used to be one of the ways of getting a unique, list of items from a larger list. You could use, a pivot table. That's one way. You could do remove duplicates. You could also do advanced filter and choose unique records only. But of course, now in with dynamic arrays, you can use the unique function for that. Okay, so but now let's talk about the option of unique records only. So let's go back to advanced filter, and I'm going to do my copy to location. I'm falling in love with it. So here I'm just going to select just one cell. Okay, so if I say unique records only here, what's going to happen is that for any of the rows that it returns, it's going to check if those rows are, different in the sense of if they are unique. If a row appears like 3 times, so when it's listing it here, it's going to list it only once. If you check this box of what unique records only. Okay, so now if you look at records 11 and 12, they're exactly the same except for the fact that what the amount income is different. Okay, so Excel wouldn't see this as what unique records because they are not totally the same, right? So these are not unique records. So even if you select unique records only and do OK, it will return both of them. Because if you kind of concatenate all of them together, it's not going to give you the same thing because of 340 and 330. But let me repeat that. Let me just change this to 340,000 so that you kind of see what I mean. Let's repeat our advanced filter and then do unique records only. Choose copy to location. Yeah, I think we're fine here. So do OK. So now you see that it gives me what? Just one of them. Okay? Because you said unique records only. Good. Now, let's see something interesting. I'm going to delete this again. Now, Let's assume I don't want it to return all the columns. I just want to choose specific columns like I did the other time. So let me just choose maybe gender this time and company name. Control C, Control V. Now let's do advanced filter, Alt Alpha Quebec. Copy to location for this. Specify, where I'm interested in. Okay. And now I do unique records only. Ideally, these two records are not the same as records 11 and 12, but let's see what happens. It only returns one. You would have expected it to return the two. That's what it was doing when you listed all the columns. So what Excel does is this. It tests for uniqueness based on what has been returned, right? If you look at these four columns that have been returned, rather, these four columns are exactly the same in both records. The IDs are the same, the first names are the same, the gender definitely is the same, the company name is the same. So for Excel, these two records are the same, right? Because you only specified four columns. But you remember that when we specified everything, it returned both of them because they are not unique when you look at all of them, all the columns, but it's unique when you look at just these four columns that have been specified. Just something I thought to point out so that you really understand how the unique records work. So two records may not be unique, but Excel could see them as unique depending on the columns that you specify for it to return. So that's just something for us to note. So summarily, I just wanted to show you that for you to set up your advanced filter, there are just a few things you need. Okay, so the first one is the list range. That's the data you're filtering. Second one is what your criteria range. That's the criteria you're filtering by. And the third one, which you may choose to have, is the location you want to copy to or extract to. And when you just extract without putting the column headers, Excel returns all the columns. If you then specify the headers, then Excel would return just those columns that have been specified. So I hope this gives you an idea of how to set it up. We would go into maybe more complex examples, especially when we want to filter by more than one column, because right now we are filtering by just one column. So we will go into deeper more difficult examples like filtering on one column by multiple criteria and filtering on multiple columns by one criteria and by multiple criteria. So if you like this video, you can hit the like button. You can also subscribe to the channel Excel Moments. And like I always say, if you can think it, Excel most likely can do it. So I would see you in the next video on Advanced Filter. But for now, I'm out.